out of nowhere. This story came out of nowhere. The PGA Tour merges with the enemy, the LIV Golf. And the first thing that popped into my mind was, you took blood money. The second thing that popped into my mind was the use of the word hypocrite. Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, engineered 7 weeks of negotiations with the leadership of the LIV and the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and came to a decision: it's better to merge, make this thing work, than fight this thing through the courts. I'm going to walk you through a couple of different angles to the story, and then John will throw it to you and you can talk about how did this happen? Why did this happen? Based on the people I network with, the LIV was in trouble. They had no fans. Their TV contract was a disaster. They had no corporate sponsors. They weren't drawing fans to their tournaments, whether it was in Istanbul, Turkey, or whether it was in London or at Trump's Bedminster. Nobody was coming to see the tournaments. They had lost $863 million last year.
Wow.
They were projected to lose this year $1.6 billion. That's a phenomenal amount of money. I don't care about Saudi oil money. That's a phenomenal amount of money.
Yeah.
And there were pressure points, I believe, from the office of the Crown Prince that this was not a good investment and this did not have an end game that was going to work out. And then suddenly the rumors started to drift towards the U.S. that the LIV was trying to find somebody to buy the golf operation. There was a report last week in London, I think it was in the London Times that I read, that they had approached a investment consortium called Endeavor, and they thought they had a $1 billion plus acquisition deal in place. And at the last minute, Endeavor looked at the books and said, no, we're not doing this. So LIV was looking at hemorrhaging money going forward. That rumor got to Ponte Vedra, Florida, to the PGA. Jay Monahan had 2 right-hand people that he worked with. One is Jimmy Dunn, who'd been with the PGA Tour for 40 years. He's an investment banker. The other is a gentleman by the name of Ed Herlihy, who's been actively involved in the PGA for a long time. He's a banker globally, a merger specialist. Monahan went to them and asked Dunn and Herlihy, would you make contact with LIV to find out what's fact, what's fiction, what's going on? And instantly the talk started. They had 4 meetings over a 7-week window. They came front and center with proposals and ideas. And it was not like, we told you so, we're going to run you into the ground, we're going to win, you have to give us everything. It was a business transaction. And one of the other things that nobody's talked about, but I really firmly believe from the golf people that I network with, neither one of these sides wanted to go into an antitrust court case. They did not want discovery, did not want depositions, because I think a lot of stuff would have surfaced about either how the PGA used to operate and what the LIV was doing, etc. Neither one wanted to pay the legal fees on top of everything else. But the discovery, I was told, is what really scared both sides to the negotiating table. So that's the background of how that happened. Just give me a quick response, because then I'll go topic to topic with a couple of our angles to the story. Are you shocked that this has developed the way it has?
Well, it is shocking because we didn't see it coming. It just all of a sudden appeared there was the merger. We had talked about how I thought it made sense that they would merge because so many other sports leagues have merged historically. And if the players were going to get the big payouts, if they were going to pay all the way down to the bottom of the list, so the guys that get cut still get paid, I thought they were going to be able to come to terms, but they were in grudge mode. But now they've kissed and made up.
Well, I don't know if they've kissed and made up, but there is, to a degree, some type of civil peace rather than civil war. And you're correct. I wrote a column about this on my website early this week. If we look back in the modern history of pro sports, we had the NFL and the AFL. And they eventually merged when the American Football League started taking all the NFL quarterbacks. That's what drove them to the table. And the prices on players went crazy. So that happened. We had the old ABA and the historically established NBA. That was bloodletting. There was a lot of money lost in the ABA, but what it did was it led to rule changes, and it allowed the young rookie players, the Dr. J's coming out of high school and Moses Malone, to go to pro basketball. So we have a better NBA now by virtue of that. We have the NHL and the World Hockey Association, and that war lasted 9 years, and the cost of players went through the roof. And they eventually came to a peace settlement because the WHA kept overpaying for the Bobby Hulls and the Andre Lacroix and the Jerry Cheevers of the world to jump to the new league. And then they finally came to a peace settlement. The one war that didn't work and nearly killed the sport was auto racing. CART, Championship Auto Racing Teams, has run Indy 500 and all the IndyCar races for decades upon decades. And the upstart IRL, the Indy Racing League, came into formation. They went to war for 3 years. IRL had drivers jump. They ran their own schedule. Nobody went to it. The CART continued to run its schedule, minus the star drivers who had jumped to the IRL, and they were really suffering, and the sport suffered terribly. All of a sudden, NASCAR lapped them in terms of popularity, and they finally settled and solved that issue. So there has been a history of competition, lawsuits, and all that, eventually a settlement. This has got big monster money implications to it.